What is going on, everybody? I am back today because fall is approaching, and fall is one of my favorite times of year. I love the cooler weather, I love the changing of the leaves, and I obviously love the build up to Halloween. And I thought it would be interesting today to talk about some of my favorite fall movies. Not necessarily horror films, although there are horror films in here, but just movies that kind of embody that feeling of fall, that through the cinematography and through the visual presentations that just get me in the mood for this time of year. I just love watching movies that are set around that time and that convey that feeling because it just gets me more excited for that time of year. And so today I'm just going to list some of my favorite fall films for you today. First up, I'm going to talk about the movie Coraline, and Coraline just had its re-release, and I feel like this movie is just the epitome of fall. It looks like fall, it feels like it has kind of that dreary weather, but there's also something so comforting about it, like the clothing the characters wear, just everything about it just feels like that time of year. I've stated it before, this is obviously one of my favorite animated films of all time. I think that the stop motion is absolutely beautiful. It has one of my favorite scores of all time that I listen to on repeat consistently, and I just love this world. It's so magical and fantastical, but at the same time it's really dark and depressing, and I love that Henry Selick was willing to go there in this movie. He doesn't really pull any punches, which I can appreciate, especially when you're making a movie that's catered to both adults and kids alike. You obviously have to watch what you're including in those types of films, but there's just something so magical about Coraline and just embodying that fall feeling that I always want to watch that movie around this time of year. And if you've never seen Coraline before, it's legitimately one of the greatest animated films of all time, and you're missing out if you haven't seen it. Next is Robert Eggers' The Witch. This movie also embodies fall to me. The leaves falling off of the trees, the kind of drearier, cloudy cinematography of the movie. It's not necessarily the bright, vibrant fall of the changing leaves, but it's like lived in fall. I love the isolation of this movie and just how it feels like the characters are trapped in this space. The environment of this film is what makes me appreciate it so much because it accomplishes exactly what Robert Eggers is setting out to do, which is create this complete and total isolated feeling. The characters have been cast out from where they were living before because of this situation with this witch that has happened. The chaos starts to build within the family, and they all start to turn on one another. Anya Taylor-Joy gives a phenomenal performance, especially for so early in her career. I love all the young actors in this movie. I feel like so many child actors don't really do the best job, but like even with the inflection in the dialogue and the way that they speak, it's just amazing what Eggers was able to accomplish here in his first film. And all the performances are amazing. And it's a movie that still makes me feel sick when I watch it. Everything about it makes me feel ill. And I love that about this movie. I think that it's so well done. Robert Eggers is one of my favorite directors of all time. And if you haven't seen this movie, it's one of the best in A24's catalog. Up next is Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead. Has there ever been really a more fall horror film? These kids vacationing out to a cabin in the middle of the woods where there's leaves all over the ground. They're constantly rustling. You still see some up in the trees. Creates a very like middle to late fall atmosphere, which I truly love. Similarly to The Witch, I love the isolated feeling of this movie. These characters are trapped in the middle of nowhere with an entity that they're trying to figure out how to stop, and they're all starting to turn into these deadites one after the other. It's very sadistic too. There's a lot of sequences in this movie, one controversial sequence in particular that just kind of showcase the sheer brutality of the situation. It also has Sam Raimi's like playful dark comedy in it where the characters are like, when they're turned, they're laughing, they say really kind of grotesque things, and I love it. I love that feeling because it creates very complex emotions for you as a viewer when you're like, okay, these are people, they were friends 5 minutes ago. Now they're enemies. You still see them as a friend because you're not necessarily understanding what's going on. And then the way that the Deadites toy with their emotions, it's just really a fascinating watch. And Evil Dead 2 is obviously my favorite in the franchise, but I think this is such an amazing horror film. For how low budget it was, the practical effects are great. This is what pushed Bruce Campbell into the Sam Raimi universe, which I love Bruce Campbell. I think he's phenomenal in this movie. And if you've never seen Evil Dead, you're missing out. Up next is The Fantastic Mr. Fox from director Wes Anderson. This is another one of my favorite stop motion films, and this is the bright, leaves changing, vibrant fall that everybody knows and loves. And I love how much orange is incorporated in this movie. It's just beautiful. Some of the most beautiful landscape shots of these created sets for the stop motion. The vocal performances in this are amazing. It's tender and heartwarming, but also with Wes Anderson's sense of humor. This was his first kind of venture into stop motion animation, and what I love is like how he still incorporates cursing, but in his own very like Wes Anderson way, which I really appreciate. There's just something about it that's so wonderful and whimsical, and what I love so much about Wes Anderson as a director. And this is a movie that keeps working its way up for me in his filmography. It's just very charming, and I remember seeing this in the theater for the first time, and I just wanted to immediately go back and watch it again. And it's a movie that's still in my constant rotation to this day. Up next is John Carpenter's Halloween. And what's so funny about this movie was shot in California, but somehow John Carpenter was able to make it feel very much like it's fall. I know that like during the production they carried around these like large bags of leaves and just dumped them all over and used like fans to blow them around. But you get little things like you can tell it's shot in California because the high school they're at, they have outdoor lockers, which I'm from Ohio. You would never find a school out here that that has lockers outdoors because of the brutal winter. But like it's really fascinating to me that John Carpenter was able to make a movie that feels so much like the Midwest in fall. There's so many shots, especially at night when Michael Myers is kind of going about through his reign of terror, that it just you just feel like it's that week of Halloween and Halloween night. There's something about it, you can just feel that essence despite the fact that it was shot in Southern California, which is so interesting to me. Obviously, one of the greatest horror films ever made, whether that be the cinematography that's so dreamlike that really kind of set off the steady cam, and the way that the camera could move in certain situations. I love how much of the movie is just Michael Myers kind of creeping in the background before all chaos breaks loose. Jamie Lee Curtis is fantastic in this movie. It's just one of those films that I can revisit it 100 times and I'll never get tired of it. And then the last one I'll mention for today, probably one of my favorite fall properties ever, is the mini series Over the Garden Wall. This is everything that I love about fall. There are so many amazing characters and settings and environments that just embody that fall spirit. Especially, I think it's the second episode where they go to the town where all the pumpkin people live. Just one of the most vibrant and beautiful episodes of television that I've ever seen. If you've never watched this miniseries before, I would highly recommend it. It's so funny. It's very surreal and strange. It's dreamlike. It goes in a direction that I don't think that you would expect. And each episode is like 10 or 12 minutes, and you can finish it in like a few hours, and it's just amazing. I love everything about it. I've already watched it like 3, 4 times since my initial viewing a couple years ago, and I just grow to love it more over time, and I can't wait to watch it again this year. So what are some of your favorite fall films? Let me know in the comments. These are obviously just some of the few that I enjoy that I thought I would mention today. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.